These breakfasts were hot, heavy, and built for men who didn't sit behind desks. Before protein shakes and cereal bars, the working man started his day with real food, made to fuel hours of hard labor. They have vanished from modern kitchens, but they fed the hands that built the country. Beef kidney stew is a rich, earthy dish that has a lot to bring to the table. Bold, distinctly old-fashioned flavors, and more protein than your muscles probably know what to do with. It gives a really deep umami base. It has a little bit of a mineral flavor, slightly metallic. You know, that's par for the course when you're dealing with actual meat. But you throw this into a skillet with some slow-cooked onions, garlic, red wine, and bay leaves, and you'll end up with this incredibly exotic-looking stew. Dark, glossy, and full of flavor, it's something that has a velvety texture also, thanks to being thickened by flour. The chunks of soft, tender carrot and potato in there also give it an incredible contrast that the dish really needs. Now, historically, this has always been a staple of the working class, especially when you go into the 19th and 20th centuries. Today, beef kidney stew is something that's not really relevant outside of the usual TikTok bringing back age-old recipes. Cold potato with an onion salad was basically the chic way to go vegetarian back then. The dish had a subtle charm that heavily relied on the texture and seasoning. It was also ideally served chilled, because, well, science. I'm just kidding, but basically, the starch starts to firm up. This gives the potato a much more dense and sometimes waxy bite that contrasts really well with the creamy dressings. It also works spectacularly with the flavors present in an onion salad, which honestly adds the perfect crunchy element. Cold potatoes can feel like a mush fest after a few bites, so having some alternative textures in there really helps smoothen everything along. Historically, cold potato and onion salad is something we likely derived from 18th century Europe. This is a pretty traditional recipe in German and French circles, and leftover boiled potatoes were always dressed in oil, vinegar, and herbs so that waste could be avoided. American potato salads are something that evolved from these traditions, and they gained a lot of popularity by the time of the 20th century as a potluck, picnic, and community dinner staple. Mutton fat bread is something that's unapologetically itself. It's too rich, too deep, and it has all the meaty flavors you could ask for. The essence of rendered sheep fat is unmistakable here. It's something that goes perfectly well with day-old bread, slightly dry, a bit hard, and coarse. You know, the entire 9 yards. This is as rustic of a dish as it gets. It absorbs the hot fat in this dish and it crisps on the outside while getting extremely soft on the inside. This dish is something that you would see really commonly whenever you would pass by factory towns or farms, especially among rural laborers, such as people in the 19th and 20th centuries. They were sheep farming regions like the Appalachia, Wales, or the Highlands, and mutton fat was an extremely common ingredient in these areas. That's because it was always far more cheaper than butter, or just a lot more flavorful than lard. The ideal material for frying. The fried bread was also a good way for people to stretch meals, and although some people didn't vibe with the overly gamey taste, back then it was considered a standard of most red meat-based meals. Enough of all this savory stuff. Let's go towards something that's actually sweet. Believe it or not, people had incredible tricks and tips for that. One of those was a rice and molasses bowl, which is the kind of dish that just inspires gentle waves of nostalgia in you. It's something that's drizzled with thick, dark molasses. The molasses, which makes for a very bittersweet, smoky bite with sweet undertones, tends to seep into the grains. This actually gives them such a nice autumn-coated color that really just makes you want to set up your best sheet in a park, call a few friends, and enjoy the small things in life. Historically, though, this was nothing that was so romantic. It was a poor man's breakfast and dessert, especially in most parts of the South and the Appalachian regions. It was very common to see among working-class Northeasterns in the 18th century, and it was something that was relied on to stretch ingredients when things were running low. This is because molasses was always really cheap and bought in bulk, and if people weren't growing their rice, they were stocking up on as much as they could. Rice, molasses, and different kinds of bowls are now bygones of different times, but they were really good. Ham and red-eye gravy is something that's considered a Southern classic. It has a really bold, salty personality, and it's a very no-nonsense flavor profile as well. This is a dish that takes country ham, which is typically dry-cured and goes the pan-frying route. The idea is to fry it until you see those dark brown edges crisping up in the pan. After that, you get an incredible flavor explosion in the form of concentrated pork drippings, and these then take a further unexpected turn. You start to pour in strong black coffee. Now I know you're about to fast forward 10 seconds, but hear me out, okay? The result isn't creamy or thick like you would expect. The coffee ends up deglazing the pan, and it creates this super thin reddish-brown gravy that has an unmistakable sheen to it. The result is a punchy, smoky, and bitter-tasting gravy, but not overwhelmingly bitter, and the coffee cuts through a lot of the richness of the ham fat. This is something you would see so commonly among rail workers in Tennessee and Alabama, especially if it was in the afternoon hours. The caffeine really helped with the job. Bacon fat griddle cakes are something that are pretty much just pure, smoky nostalgia. They're the right kind of greasy. They're visually stunning, and they're full of so much flavor that you'll wonder why people stopped making these in the first place. The best part? They're so good to make on a budget. All that's required for this recipe is some flour, milk, eggs, and just a tad bit of cornmeal, sugar, and maybe molasses if you're really feeling like a dessert king. You're going to have got really old school with the griddle. You take leftover bacon grease instead of any butter or oil, and once your cake's shape is completely done, you just slap them on the griddle. What you get for all your hard, strenuous work is a very crispy-edged, savory and sweet pancake that has a lot of smokiness to it. Each bite feels like a crunch, but the exterior is what's really worth talking about. Obviously, you'd expect something like this to have a fluffy inside, but the exterior is just the perfect start to a delicious bite. Stewed dried apples are something that smell like an old kitchen in the middle of fall. I'm talking about warm colors, scents, spices, and fruity notes galore. The apples are leathery slices, but you can also cut them up into the shape of rings for some extra visual flair. They get simmered really slowly in water, and when they plump back to life, they start to go really tender. These are super chewy at their core, and sugar, cinnamon, or just a little bit of clove will give them that extra weight they're missing. Stewed dried apples have been a pantry essential across many centuries, but particularly the 19th century in Southern America. That's because drying apples was the most standard way of keeping them all right before refrigeration came along. Salted herring with potatoes is a dish that is built entirely on contrast. The briny meets the bland, and strong undertones meet soft aftertastes. The herring itself is something that's preserved in brine, right? So it's deeply flavored. It's firm when it comes to the flesh, it's slightly oily, and that tang isn't for everyone. But an honest-to-God seafood lover is going to enjoy the life out of it. The dish itself is something that's most commonly served cold, slightly warmed, or just with a side of elegant mashed potatoes. As elegant as they can be when they're made by a frustrated mom who just wants to get the table set up, really. A bit of chopped onion, sour cream, and dill, and you'll be remembering your mom's cooking soon enough. You know, salted herring with potatoes has always been something that's deeply considered a working-class regular, especially in the American Midwest and Northeast. It was so common to see this in coastal communities where fresh fish were always abundant. Preservation was something even kids could tell you about. Salted herring let families eat protein year-round, and potatoes were cheap and easy to grow, and they could be made into 1,000 different things. Souse is a dish that actually shows you just how much resourcefulness the working class had back then. The nose-to-tail mentality of people was really something that persisted throughout several centuries before coming to a close leading up to the 2000s. This is a dish that was incredibly averse to being typical. It was one of those things that was different not because it wanted to be, or because it was trying to be, but because it just really had to be. The cooked meat was something that was chopped, mixed with different kinds of vinegar and spices, and suspended in a natural gelatin as it cooled down. Served cold, thick, and in delicate little slices, it had a punch that really helped to balance out the flavors of the pork, with a texture that will keep you stimulated throughout the whole meal. This is a dish that shows you all the different flavors the American South really has to offer. Rolled oats and bacon are a really humble and delicious combination. It does two things very perfectly. It balances the comfort of a cream-heavy dish with the allure of smoky flavors. Now, that's not very hard to do, but I think when a dish makes that work, it's always one for the notes app. The oats are something you simmer slowly in water and milk. You know, the usual preparation. You have to wait until it becomes completely porridge, though. Stir in these crisp crumbles of bacon, and suddenly the dish transforms into a wonderful savory fantasy. You get to have this decadent texture with just the tiniest bits of smoky aftertaste, and it makes for a dish that just feels like the perfect autumn or winter breakfast. Historically, though, this is a dish that you would actually find more often in the summer times, when people were really trying to stretch out their meals and scraping for protein. Especially in the early 20th century, when rationing meant that almost everyone had to think conservatively about what they were eating and how much of it they were using. The savory oats bowl couldn't ever go mainstream, but I think that suits the quiet nature of the dish. So fried cornmeal mush with syrup was this really golden, crispy edge throwback to times where meals like this counted as a wonderful breakfast. It was made from what was essentially just a chilled polenta, or otherwise known as cornmeal mush. You would slice these into thick slabs, pan-fry them until the outside was a complete crackling crust, and then the inside would stay really soft, dense, and creamy. Topping these with a bit of drizzle, sorghum and maple would complete the experience, and you would be enjoying a beautiful contrast of textures, flavors, and the crunchiness of it all. Cornmeal is a deeply hearty dish. It's something that sticks with you, and the nutty flavors help with that. This was a dish that was so common amongst Midwestern farm families and Southern homes throughout the 1800s and 1940s, and that was partially because cornmeal was so abundant that people just made up different versions of similar dishes. You will find it in old cookbooks, certain off-road diners that really try to stick to the whole mid-90s vibe, and Southern homes, but it's largely something that just doesn't get much traction anymore. Even still, cornmeal mush was amazing and deserves to have its name in the Hall of Fame of easy, convenient breakfasts you can rely on. Beef drippings on toast are the quintessential middle-aged dad breakfast, and I'm referring to a really specific kind of dad too. Beer belly, loaded forearms built over a career of a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, and the ability to fall asleep on a floor in jeans and eat literally anything. We all know the type. Beef drippings on toast were a breakfast that people largely made when they were low on materials for anything else. Toast is nice, but people have been hearing about it for literally centuries, and, things just get old. People like to spice their toast up. It's only human. It's pretty much just what you would expect, too. Beef drippings are largely a byproduct of bacon and red meat cooking, and people like to scoop that up and preserve it as much as they could. You could pour it over beans, or just about anything really. It was the kind of thing that would last you through several uncomfortable situations. Having to eat the same bland toast sounds pretty uncomfortable to me. It was also not as meaty or greasy as you would expect. It pretty much just tasted like your regular old beef. And this is what helped it to stay a consistent breakfast option throughout a lot of the 1950s and 1960s. Stewed tomatoes on bread were something created out of thrift necessity, but they ended up being such a massive comfort food for the people that they stuck around. Tomatoes are often canned, right? That didn't used to be a thing until like the 60s, and that's why people really wanted to try out this new variant of tomatoes. They were slow-cooked, fresh with onion, butter, and bacon fat. Some people would go the extra mile, add a bit of sugar and salt, sometimes a hint of spice and vinegar, or take on a really rich and slightly sweet flavor. As these would tend to simmer, they would soften into this thick, chunky sauce that was kind of juicy but not really watery, and it had a really nice acidity to it. It helped that whatever flavors were there would cling really hard to the tomatoes. The simmering process would help them soften into this thick, chunky sauce too, and it went wild with white bread or cornbread. The bread was perfect for absorbing all of that up like a sponge, and that's what made this such a staple throughout the Depression and throughout a lot of the southern areas. Tomatoes are something that nobody ever really runs out of, and stewing them on bread is something that's a forgotten classic for getting through a hungry day. Mutton sausages are these super earthy, super robust, and unapologetically meaty dishes that offer an entire world of flavor for those willing to traverse its savory depths. They're grounded until they are extremely coarse, and the chew is something that lets you know you're eating something with a lot of flavor in it. Speaking of flavor, this is something that strikes a lot of unique notes. It's grassy, a bit gamey, and extremely savory, but it's seasoned in a very different way. You have blends of parsley, garlic, pepperjack, allspice, even nutmeg in there. People would also make really traditional blends with things like rosemary, black pepper, garlic, and a bit of vinegar. When you would cook these, the fat would slowly render out, and this would baste the meat internally, making it an incredible flavor festival for meat lovers. Now, parsnip hash is a sweet, savory dish that boggle your mind. Because what really does parsnip hash entail? It's a sweet and savory skillet dish that smells a lot like summer and tastes like something that just came out of a wood-fired stove. Parsnips were diced, fried, and they turned golden at the edges. The idea was to caramelize them until they were just about to be overcooked, because there's this really specific sweet spot between overcooked and just typically caramelized where the flavor gets super concentrated. The end result was a nutty, peppery, and sweet dish that was honestly to die for. If you're looking for something healthy to add to your diet, this is also a wonderful option. And historically speaking, it's always been something people ate throughout the winter to keep their health strong, their immune system locked in, and their bellies full. Some people definitely prefer things completely vegetarian, and this is a pretty amazing way to go about it. If you're looking for some inspiration for your meal plan, then there's no better or healthier dish to start out with than turnip hash. Also, if you do end up trying this, you absolutely have to share the experience in the comments. I'm low-key dying to know what turnip hash is like. Fried salt pork with cornbread is a plateful of everything you like if you like bitter, salty tastes. Fat, frontier grit, and salt, this is the kind of food that made men out of boys. It's the kind of food that builds up muscle that isn't just for show, but the kind that gets railroads built. It's also the kind of food that people eat when they want to last through an especially aggressive winter. The salt pork gets heavily cured for preservation purposes, and it becomes streaked with fat. It's sliced into these thick strips and chunks, and then it's pan-fried until it's supremely crisp on the outside and really chewy in the middle. It tastes a bit like old bacon, especially the parts of it that are super salty and smoky. They have a very satisfying crunch, and they have a very lingering richness that just stays in your mouth. This is a combo that you would see a lot in the South and Appalachian regions, especially because salt pork was such an ideal way to preserve things. It is pretty much something everyone's grandparents have made at some point, despite now being something that's largely in the background. Buckwheat porridge is a dish that screams warm and umami. It has a very nutty backbone, and it has an incredibly rustic flavor profile. If you cook this slowly, the buckwheat groats start to absorb water and the milk. The end result is this ultra-divine, thick porridge that's really filling, deeply satisfying, and just what you need after a hard day of work. Its texture is something that's a lot coarser than oatmeal, it's a lot chewier, it's more toothsome, and it has a rich and bitter flavor that makes it stand out from softer kinds of breakfast grains. Unsweetened, it's a bit less robust. It leans towards savory more than it does to anything complex, flavor-wise. Sweeten it with molasses, honey, or brown sugar, though, and you get an entirely different picture. Vividly smoky, deeply sweet, and just the right kind of warm, it becomes this ideal comfort food that restores your spirit and gets you ready for your day. Buckwheat porridge has always been something people have used like that, to just get themselves on their feet when they don't feel like making anything else, and I think it's time to bring the tradition back for all grain enthusiasts. Now, meat bone broth soup is a slow-simmered dish that most people think is deeply nourishing. When you walk into a kitchen that has this cooking, you start to immediately think that you're in the factory where pain relief medication is made. I mean, it doesn't smell like anything good. This is definitely one of those dishes where you have to trust the process, though, because you're in for a wild transformation. The magic of this recipe starts with the bones. Beef, pork, or chicken. ideally with some scraps of meat still left on there, simmered for hours. If you want to get truly authentic and traditional, then you should simmer them for a few days. Yes, a few days. People actually did that with continuous fires. They also added a lot of onions, garlic, herbs, root vegetables, and whatever else they could find. The idea was that as it would cook, the marrow, collagen, and flavor would all dissolve and melt into the broth, making this super silky texture that just immediately feels amazing on the tongue. It feels a lot more like food than it feels like a broth, soup, or a drink, by the way. As far as the final flavor goes, it's deeply meaty, very subtly sweet, and it has a lot of herbaceous notes depending on the kinds of seasoning you use. Despite what you might think, the minerality from the bones isn't actually too strong. That's what all that intensive simmering is for. Bone broth is actually making a bit of a comeback today, but the rustic version we're discussing here is something that's just stuck to the pages of cookbooks now instead of the corners of our mind. Turnip greens and cornmeal dumplings are a dish that confuses you. Is this survival food? Is this a nice little experiment with dumplings and vegetables? It feels like both. It was actually used in both ways too, so you would be pretty spot on with that assessment. See, people love to have fun with the things they did back then, even if those things were rooted in practicality and optimization. The turnip greens were something you simmered slowly, taking pleasure in the little things in life. You would absorb all the scents, fragrances, and aromas, and honestly, just doing that would kill most of your hunger. Plus, when they would get ready, they would turn silky and dark, and they had this really warm glisten to them. Swimming in a pot liquor broth that was abundant with pork fat, usually from a ham hock, it set the stage for an extremely soulful dish that knows what it's about. The cornmeal dumplings were then thrown into the pot, the perfect addition for something to revitalize your spirits. Soft spoonfuls of cornmeal dough would be mixed with bubbling greens, as they created a perfect Ghibli vibe for you to immerse yourself in. Historically, this is a dish that has been very common in Black and poor white communities. It's easy to romanticize today, but it is also a dish that's rooted in struggle, poverty, and making the most out of very little. The liver and onions breakfast fry is a strong, unapologetic dish that comes at you with iron, fat, and attitude, which is what the morning needs. Liver slices, practically always beef or pork, are lightly floured and pan-fried, just shy of crunchy on the outside. Tender on the inside, it's all liver, undeniably. Rich, metallic, slightly sweet, extremely savory. Soft onions, caramelized along with or sautéed separately in the same skillet, add a sweetness that balances all that intensity. Often deep-fried in bacon grease or lard, the whole plate is smoky and salty, the depth of flavor more medicinal than indulgent. Some versions add eggs or grits on the side, but the liver and onions are the point. Protein-forward, greasy. It's something that's undeniably as rustic as it is protein-filled. If you like spending your Saturday morning riding the meat express to flavor heaven, then this is definitely a dish for you. Historically, though, this was a meal that people ate when they really needed fuel for all the digging, shoveling, and hauling of the day. Liver was something you could get for a dime a dozen from local butcher shops, and everybody wanted to take advantage of that fact. A warm, unassuming bowl of grainy goodness, cracked wheat cereal evokes the flavor of chili farm mornings. A thick, slightly chewy cereal with a nutty, toasted flavor is created by cooking coarsely ground wheat kernels, also known as bulgur or wheat farina, in water or milk. It has a rustic tang that lets you know this was once a whole grain that was plucked from the ground, and it's heartier than cream of wheat and less sweet than muesli. Simple toppings like a pat of butter, a tablespoon of brown sugar or molasses, and perhaps a dash of milk turn it from bland to comfortable without taking away from its healthy qualities. Besides being something that's entirely perfect for getting your gains in a healthy way, it's a dish that really just takes you for a spin when you eat it regularly. Suddenly your skin's doing better, you're putting on some muscle, you've probably never felt this fresh in a long while. It's a dish that's abundant with goodness, and that's a big part of why people would cling onto it as a reliable breakfast. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is really just make a bowl of cracked wheat cereal. Fatback and grits is pretty much something you would always identify as Southern comfort food. It's just something that's always been so heavily associated with the South, and that's for a good reason. Southern restaurants, families, churches, charity organizations, and a lot more have relied on this because it's just that good at what it does. You get an extremely soul-sustaining dish that's very popular in the rural South, and in farming communities, it's a gold mine. This is something that's also considered treasure among sharecroppers. But really, why is everyone putting all their stocks into this? Well, Fatback was just an inexpensive and convenient way to preserve pork. And I mean seriously preserve it. Something that was this valuable of a protein source needed to go all the extra miles it could, and the people of America were all about making it last as long as possible. Grits would be made from ground hominy corn, and a lot of farmsteads and rural communities back then had their own practices of growing corn derived from Native American techniques and farming methods. Nowadays, Fatback and grits just isn't something you see much in America anymore. But if you go for rustic, vintage Southern joints, you can find some authentic recipes. Most restaurants serve refined versions of this old classic now, though. So keep that in mind if you're looking to vlog a very faithful rendition of this dish. Barley breakfast porridge is this incredibly wholesome dish with a supremely nutty flavor. So it has this really satisfying texture that just feels like you're almost dipping your hooks into a custard, right? But it's also something that can be made to resemble kheer if you've ever had it. It can be made from hulled barley or pearl barley, but depending on which, you get an entirely different flavor merry-go-round. The combination is something that screams cottagecore. Historically, barley porridge really was a cottagecore too. It was a popular breakfast for people who were in rural areas, immigrant communities, and people who lived on the fringes of civilization, especially during winters, when barley was something that everybody was investing in, from the mountains to the cities. Barley breakfast porridge isn't something that's really all that common anymore. It's been overshadowed by oats, granola, and the convenience of all the pre-packaged instant cereals of today, but there's a place for it still. You can cause that comeback yourself by sharing your own take on the barley breakfast porridge. The classic simple snack plate consists of salty, greasy, and unpretentious sardines and crackers. With just a little pressure, the soft, flaky sardines, which can be packed in oil, mustard, tomato sauce, or even fiery chilies, will surrender. They have a strong marine flavor that is more akin to a preserved richness that has been mellowed by time and oil than it is to fresh fish. Crackers provide the sardines the crunch and blandness they need to counterbalance their aggressiveness. The combination is still modest and incredibly fulfilling, even with the addition of a dollop of mustard, a splash of spicy sauce, or even a few thin slices of onion. This pairing was a classic lunchbox or supper standby throughout the 20th century, especially during the Great Depression, wartime rationing, and the working-class boom of the 1950s. Sardines were shelf-stable, high in protein, and inexpensive, making them a go-to for mill workers, fishermen, factory hands, and anyone needing a quick, filling bite. Served with saltines or butter crackers, they required no cooking, no refrigeration, and no fuss. Some folks even kept a can in their coat pocket for lunch on the job. Some of the most popular brands of sardines back then were Beechcliff, Brunswick, and Underwood. And some of these are still putting out the same sardines today. If you want to really stick to the recipe, there's no better time to do it than now. Goose grease toast is old-world decadence at its finest. It's a dish that isn't pretentious, overly fancy, or something it doesn't need to be. Instead, all you get is a crispy, rich, dripping flavor that comes at you like Trump tariffs towards China. This is also the kind of flavor you can pretty much obtain only from a long, slow roasted bird, and the grease itself is something that's rendered from the fat of a goose. Typically, you get this from a holiday roast or a Sunday dinner. Once it gets cooled and strained, it becomes this ivory-colored fat that has a savory depth. It's a lot less saltier than you would expect a bacon fat dish to be either. It's more so rich and complex. If you spread this on hot toast, then the party really gets going. The dish melts into every pore of the bread, and it just becomes one of those meals that just blends flavors together. You know how you eat something and you can pick apart all the different things that are in there? That isn't the case with this dish. It's literally just something that all melts together into one individual, unique flavor, which is a really good statement about the quality of a dish. Historically, goose grease toast was definitely something new because it was introduced by immigrant communities, and people were a bit unsure. Once they tried it, though, they really got on the bandwagon. Goose grease toast is something that's really gone from American tables now, but they used to be something that got everyone seated at a table. Waffles with chicken is a classic Southern dish that beautifully combines savory and sweet flavors, first appearing in the 1930s. This dish pairs crispy fried chicken with fluffy waffles. The ingredients include chicken, flour, eggs, and buttermilk for the waffles, while the chicken is coated in seasoned flour before frying to golden perfection. The waffle batter is cooked in a waffle iron, resulting in a tender texture. Maple syrup is usually paired with this dish, enhancing the flavor combo. Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles helped popularize it, introducing this delicacy to a wider audience and solidifying its place in American food history. This iconic restaurant chain was established in Los Angeles in 1975 and quickly became famous for this unique dish. Remember Quisp cereal? Launched by Quaker Oats in 1965, this cereal brought a whole new level of fun to the breakfast table with its alien mascot and saucer-shaped pieces. It quickly won over children with its sugary flavor and captivating animated commercials that made breakfast fun. The cereal's unique branding and playful design were key differentiators in a crowded market. Despite its initial success, the shift towards healthier breakfast options posed challenges for Quisp, leading to its eventual status as a nostalgic item brought back periodically to appeal to adults who had grown up with it. This strategic shift in marketing to tap into nostalgia, combined with occasional updates to its formula, allowed Quisp to maintain interest among former fans while navigating the complexities of modern cereal markets. Something that was as essential to the hearty sandwich experience in the 80s as the meat itself, the cinnamon raisin biscuits that they first released back then are also something people have constantly expressed their desire to see again. Seriously, it was impossible to not order this with whatever you were having. It was only some cents, and it elevated the meal to something else entirely. Think about how your Subway just does not feel complete without a chocolate cookie to go with it, except it is that feeling by 10 times. Cinnamon raisin biscuits were delectable, refreshing, and a light enough breakfast to be fulfilling without making you lazy. Unfortunately, for some odd reason unknown to all of us, despite its very warm place in the hearts of the fans, they took it off the menu in 2002. Ever wonder why corned beef hash became such a breakfast staple, especially during the bustling post-war era? It combined diced corned beef, potatoes, and spices, all canned for convenience. Typically served with eggs or toast, this meal option was a quick, hearty solution for families on the go. Promoted by brands like Hormel and Libby's, its marketing highlighted the ease of preparation and robust flavor, appealing to those with limited time for cooking. These advertising efforts often portrayed corned beef hash as the hero of the busy morning, saving time without sacrificing taste. The product maximized American values of efficiency and practicality, fitting perfectly into the fast-paced lifestyle of its consumers. It continued to be recognized for its convenience and satisfying taste. Puffed wheat cereal, which was first created in the late 19th century, is a light and airy breakfast food that has been enjoyed for generations. The cereal, made from whole wheat grains, is typically enjoyed with milk or as a topping for yogurt. The process of making puffed wheat cereal involves exposing the grains to high pressure and heat, which causes them to expand and become light and crispy. Puffed wheat cereal was popularized by the Quaker Oats Company, which marketed the cereal as a healthy and nutritious breakfast option. Quaker puffed wheat was introduced in 1909 by the Quaker Oats Company, following the success of their puffed rice cereal. The cereal's unique light texture sets it apart from other breakfast cereals. In 1952, puffed wheat was one of the cereals featured in the first televised commercial for Quaker Oats, showcasing its versatility and appeal. Wheatena, a whole wheat hot cereal known for its hearty flavor and nutritional benefits, catered to health-conscious consumers since its introduction in the late 19th century. Its high fiber and mineral content were key selling points, attracting those seeking a nutritious breakfast. The all-natural composition of Wheatena appealed to consumers looking for wholesome meal options. It was often served warm and could be enhanced with fruits or nuts, allowing for customization according to individual taste preferences. This adaptability made Wheatena a preferred choice for those who valued both health and flavor in their breakfast, establishing it as a nutritious option capable of providing sustained energy throughout the morning. Sometimes simple really does the trick, and with the Southern-style chicken biscuit that McDonald's put on their breakfast menu, they proved that old golden rule of thumb true to the core. Just a piece of slightly dry oregano-flavored chicken between two halves of a biscuit, this was a very popular add-on and basically a guaranteed order if you were getting hash browns or a whole combo meal from the breakfast menu. It was hard to hate on it because at the time it filled a niche that no one in the market was really taking up, which was a slightly more tame chicken biscuit, not a very spicy one. Plus, that commercial was pretty catchy when it used to air the time, and if McDonald's does anything right, it is the marketing. The Southern-style chicken biscuit got discontinued a while later as it fell out of popularity due to inflation. People did not see the point in paying that much for it, and we could not blame them. Introduced in 1964 by Carnation, this wasn't just your average breakfast, it was breakfast on the go. Available in tasty flavors like chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry, chocolate being the preferred choice, it promised the nutrition of a complete meal. The drink became a morning staple due to its convenience and nutritional content, highlighted in campaigns that emphasized its health benefits. Over the years, as consumer tastes evolved, Carnation adapted its formula to include lower sugar and higher protein versions, meeting the newer nutritional expectations without compromising on the quick, delicious start that families had come to rely on. The Fluffernutter sandwich, created in the early 20th century, is a classic American dish often enjoyed as a sweet treat or snack. This nostalgic sandwich is made by spreading peanut butter and marshmallow fluff on white bread. The dish typically uses soft white bread, which complements the creamy textures of the fillings. The brand of marshmallow spread traditionally used is Marshmallow Fluff, invented in 1917 by Archibald Query in Somerville, Massachusetts. It was originally sold door-to-door before gaining widespread popularity. The sandwich became a popular childhood treat in the mid-20th century because of its sweet and satisfying taste. The term Fluffernutter was coined by an advertising agency in the 1960s, solidifying the sandwich's identity. King Vitamin cereal, launched by Quaker Oats in the early 1970s, targeted young consumers with its king-themed mascot and crown-shaped cereal pieces. Its packaging, often featuring puzzles and stories, directly appealed to children's love for adventure and discovery. Fortified with vitamins and minerals, the cereal was an attractive choice for parents seeking nutritious options for their children's breakfasts. The engaging marketing campaigns utilized animated commercials that brought the whimsical world of King Vitamin to life, enhancing its appeal. The cereal's sweet flavor and unique shapes helped it stand out in the competitive market of children's cereals, making it a popular choice during its peak years, especially appreciated for its fun and nutritional content. Blueberry buckle is a delightful breakfast pastry that originated in the early 20th century. The term buckle originated in the 19th century to describe fruit-studded cakes that buckled under the weight of their toppings during baking. This dish, typically enjoyed as a breakfast or brunch item, combines a moist cake base with fresh blueberries and a crumbly streusel topping. The ingredients for blueberry buckle include flour, sugar, butter, eggs, and fresh blueberries, creating a sweet and satisfying treat. Blueberry buckle became popular when it was embraced as a traditional breakfast pastry in the northeastern United States, where blueberries are plentiful. In Maine, blueberry buckle is celebrated with an annual festival featuring baking competitions, tastings, and live music, highlighting the state's rich blueberry heritage. Fruit cocktail in heavy syrup was a beloved component of breakfast and dessert menus. particularly during the 1970s. This mix of diced peaches, pears, grapes, pineapple, and cherries, all preserved in thick syrup, was a convenient and tasty addition to many meals. Del Monte and Libby's were leading brands, heavily marketing the product's ease of use and the sweet indulgence it offered. The syrup's rich flavor enhanced the appeal, making the fruit cocktail a quick solution for a sweet serving. In a time when convenience often trumped other considerations, this product stood out for its ability to deliver a variety of fruits in one easy package. Despite shifts in consumer preferences, it remained a practical and appealing choice for those looking for quick fruit options. McDonald's is also something you usually associate with burgers, fries, and a pretty good shake just like Wendy's, but they would also try to rebrand a little with their McSkillet burrito. Originally something they launched in the November of 2007, it was a masterpiece that captivated people immediately and became one of the biggest parts of their sales, giving their breakfast menu just as much success, if not more, than anybody else's. When you think about a McSkillet, you should imagine one of those monster burritos from Chipotle. This was just as famous as those which were pretty much the king of the burrito game, but people would often begin alternating between the McSkillet or outright switching to it. We mean it really went well with some steak and roja sauce as add-ons. It is just that the McSkillet was not particularly a new concept, so when the initial hype died down, it got discontinued in 2013. Even now, there are still many online petitions to bring it back, so who knows? The malted milk drink, a sweet and nostalgic beverage, first appeared in the late 19th century. This creamy delight is made from milk, malt powder, and sometimes ice cream, blended into a refreshing treat. The drink was invented by William Horlick, who patented malted milk powder in 1887 as a nutritious supplement for infants and invalids. It was popularized by brands like Horlicks, which marketed it as a nutritious and tasty option. Unusual flavors or variations of the malted milk drink include chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla, adding to its appeal. In the early 20th century, malted milk was touted as a health tonic and was even recommended by doctors for its nutritional benefits. The drink inspired a love for creamy and sweet drinks, often enjoyed as a quick breakfast on the go. Eggs in a nest, also known as eggs in a frame, brought a playful twist to traditional breakfast eggs by frying them inside a hole cut from a slice of bread. This simple yet delightful dish allowed for creativity and personalization during preparation, making breakfast an engaging meal. It was particularly popular for its ease of preparation and the joy it brought to the breakfast table, allowing for variations such as different bread types or added toppings like cheese or herbs. The interactive cooking process, cutting the bread and watching the egg cook perfectly in the middle, was a key appeal, making it a favorite among families. This dish stood out for its simplicity and the fun it added to cooking, making it a go-to choice for a quick and enjoyable breakfast. Sonic kind of stood out from the rest of the crowd with their take on a burrito-based breakfast. Their breakfast burrito had plenty of sausage, tots, cheese, and some bacon to top it off. It was pretty beloved, even though Sonic did not have the same pull as some of the biggest names in the fast food industry. Now, do not get us wrong, they were popular and a good local breakfast option, but their popularity was not as widespread as, let's say, McDonald's. As time passed, newer chains like Chipotle introduced their breakfast burritos that gained more traction than Sonic could generate. This meant a downfall in popularity for a breakfast burrito that once was loved by every person that visited Sonic. This led to the burrito being discontinued sometime at the start of the 2000s. Ever wondered why Maxwell House instant coffee, launched way back in 1892, became synonymous with American mornings? Founded in 1892, its memorable slogan, "Good to the last drop," helped carve its niche in American coffee culture. The brand leveraged traditional, comforting imagery in its marketing, enhancing its appeal as a reliable household staple. Despite the rise of fresher, artisanal coffee options, Maxwell House expanded its line to include premium varieties, adapting to broader tastes. This strategy aimed to maintain relevance amid changing consumer preferences,
focusing on providing quality and convenience. Maxwell House's efforts to update its product offerings were crucial in addressing the evolving demands of the coffee-drinking public.
Rice Krispies Treats for Breakfast is a playful and inventive dish that originated in the mid-20th century. In 1940, Kellogg's introduced Rice Krispies cereal, and soon after, recipes for Rice Krispies Treats began appearing on the cereal box, contributing to their widespread popularity. This fun treat consists of Rice Krispies cereal mixed with melted marshmallows and butter, shaped into bars. Rice Krispies give it a light and crispy texture, while toppings like chocolate chips, peanut butter, or colorful sprinkles make it festive. The treats gained popularity when families began enjoying them as a playful snack, beloved by both children and adults. Their airy texture and gooey sweetness set them apart from other cereal-based treats. Rice Krispies Treats showcase the potential for creative and indulgent snacks, reflecting the joy of childhood and the endless possibilities of breakfast.
Mapo Instant Maple Oatmeal set itself apart in the competitive oatmeal market with its unique maple flavor and the ease of instant preparation. Introduced in 1953, it became especially popular among families for its appealing taste and the memorable marketing character Marky Mapo, which resonated with children. The convenience of just adding hot water made Mapo a preferred choice for quick breakfasts, aligning well with the growing demand for efficient meal solutions. The distinctive maple flavor offered a sweet, comforting taste that stood out from more traditional oatmeal flavors, making Mapo a notable option in the breakfast category, favored for its taste and quick preparation.
We have talked a lot about wraps, but what about the great stuff that goes with them? Chick-fil-A filled in the side item role pretty well with its spicy chicken biscuit, which today you can get for $2.25. But back then, during their golden days, both quality and popularity, you could get them for $0.50. Spicy chicken biscuits were also great as a combo meal with a drink and a side of your picking, and that was something people definitely reacted positively to. The company noted the growing trend of spicy food and predicted that the upward momentum would stay that way, and boy were they right. Even if they played a good part in keeping that pace going in the ever-developing food scene of America, people in general wanted more stuff with a kick. Chick-fil-A really saw an opportunity and grabbed it, and breakfast menus were forever better for it. Cereal with half and half is a decadent and indulgent breakfast choice that became popular in the mid-20th century. This dish involves serving cereal with half and half cream instead of milk, creating a rich and creamy experience. The type of cereal most commonly used in this dish varies, but it often includes classic choices like Corn Flakes or Wheaties. The reason half and half is used instead of milk is to add a luxurious texture and flavor, enhancing the cereal's taste. In recent years, health-conscious consumers have sought alternatives to traditional half and half, leading to the popularity of dairy-free options like almond milk or oat milk for this indulgent breakfast dish.
Spam rose to prominence during World War II, appreciated for its convenience and shelf life, and it continued to be a staple in American households thereafter. It was marketed as a versatile ingredient suitable for a variety of dishes, appealing to families looking for quick, budget-friendly meal options. Hormel Foods, the maker of Spam, responded to changing culinary preferences by introducing new flavors and varieties, aiming to reinvigorate the brand's appeal amid shifting consumer tastes that favored fresher, less processed food options. These efforts included targeted marketing campaigns that emphasized Spam's versatility in modern home cooking, showcasing its ability to adapt to current trends while maintaining its core identity as a convenient and reliable food product.
Next up, we have something that you would think people would want to have during a movie or their favorite show, but worked great as breakfast too. Burger King's French toast sticks first came around in 1985 in competition with Wendy's, who was also launching their own stick campaign in hopes of claiming a place in America's fast food hall of fame. And hey, they did, but the Burger King ones just had something saucy in them, something that gave you a jolt of energy for your regular sucky Monday morning shift or lecture. Some other places did try to make these toast sticks like Jack in the Box and Sonic, and some of those were pretty big players like McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts. They did not have as big of a piece of the pie as Burger King, though. What particularly helped these sticks keep their momentum is how well they paired with other items on the menu, and even some of the others on this list later on. Of course, they were great a la carte as well, but who really goes to fast food joints and walks out without combo meals, especially in those old 90s days? Still, those eras are definitely far behind us now, as the time of the French toast stick is long gone by today. Maple bars are a type of donut that was first created in the mid-20th century. This sweet treat is typically enjoyed as a breakfast item or snack, especially in the Pacific Northwest, where it has become particularly popular. Maple bars are made from a light and airy dough that's shaped into a rectangular bar, then fried and topped with a sweet maple-flavored icing. The maple bar is believed to have originated in Portland, Oregon in the 1920s, with local donut shops offering this unique variation of the classic donut. The type of dough used for maple bars is similar to that of traditional donuts, ensuring a soft and tender texture. In 2013, the mayor of Portland declared June 7th as National Donut Day to celebrate the city's rich donut culture, including the iconic maple bar. Johnny cakes, a traditional American dish, dates back to the early colonial period. They are typically enjoyed as a breakfast or side dish, offering a hearty and simple meal. The dish is made with cornmeal, water, and salt, forming a batter that is fried on a griddle. Traditionally, Johnny cakes are made with stone-ground white cornmeal, which gives them a unique texture and flavor. These cakes are cooked until golden and crisp, then served with butter, syrup, or other toppings. Johnny cakes were a staple food for Native American tribes in the Northeast, who taught European settlers how to make them from local ingredients like cornmeal. Johnny cakes became popular when they were embraced as a traditional breakfast food in New England and the southern United States. TV brand frozen breakfasts offered a comprehensive, ready-to-eat meal solution that included sausages, eggs, pancakes, and hash browns, simplifying the morning routine for many American families. Introduced in the 1970s, these breakfasts catered to the need for convenience and variety, allowing families to enjoy a hearty meal without extensive preparation. The marketing of these products highlighted their quick and easy preparation, appealing particularly to those with hectic morning schedules. The assortment within each package made these breakfasts highly appealing, as they catered to various preferences within a family, all from a single, easy-to-prepare kit. This product line was well received for providing a diverse and satisfying breakfast experience that could be enjoyed by everyone at the table. Along the same time as McDonald's and Burger King was making breakfast items, you had Wendy's trying to get into the game early with their breakfast burrito, which really did do much better than they initially expected it would. People knew Wendy's for their chicken and their amazing square beef hamburger patties, so it is not surprising that some people went in with hesitant minds when they first ordered this. We always say you cannot know until you try, and that could not have been truer for Americans when they would start taking their first bites of a succulent, explosive breakfast burrito. It had a perfect mix of flavors and harmony between meat, vegetables, sauces, and bread, all in some very affordable. Wendy's use of cheddar cheese also really got people going and sold them on the idea Americans will eat almost anything if you put some hot melted cheese on it. The success of Wendy's newly propelled breakfast menu, including the burrito, slowed down around 2013, so it's pretty disappointing that you cannot get that same luxury yet incredibly cheap breakfast. French toast with powdered sugar, also known as pain perdu in France, is a beloved breakfast dish dating back to the 4th or 5th century. It involves dipping bread in a mixture of eggs and milk, then frying it until golden brown. Traditionally, it's served with powdered sugar, though various toppings like fruit or syrup can be added. The bread choice impacts the dish, with brioche or challah being popular for their rich texture and flavor. The name pain perdu means lost bread, as it originally used stale bread to prevent waste. Unique toppings such as cream or savory ingredients have added variety to this classic. In the U.S., Julia Child popularized French toast, cementing its place in American cuisine and making it a household staple. Her televised cooking show, The French Chef, played a significant role in introducing French toast to a wider American audience. Speaking of dreamy sandwiches that set the mood just right, it would be downright criminal to record this and not talk about Jack in the Box's prime rib steak and egg sandwich. A warm flour tortilla wrap with hash browns, prime rib, cheese, onions, and a lot more, making it one of the most premium savory thrills you could get on an affordable budget. People ate these up like goblins, sparing no thought for the punch to their gut health-wise or how heavy one of these really was. Listen, this really shouldn't be too surprising if you know anything about prime rib steak and America's long-standing love for each other. It has always been one of the most popular ways to get your protein, and the idea of prime rib steak sandwiches and other bread-based dishes is not new. What was new was the innovative flavors Jack in the Box managed to hit and maintain with its sauces, and we gotta say, adding in the hash browns definitely helped too. Something we would spend a quarter of our paycheck on if it came out today for sure. Breakfast in a can is a quirky and convenient dish that emerged in the early 20th century. This all-in-one meal includes ingredients like beans, sausage, eggs, or pancakes, all packed into a can for easy prep. The convenience and versatility of this dish have made it a favorite among campers, hikers, and outdoor enthusiasts. During World War II, breakfast in a can became popular among soldiers as a portable and shelf-stable option for breakfast in the field. The type of meat commonly used in breakfast in a can varies, but it often includes sausage or bacon, providing a savory and filling meal. Breakfast in a can showcases the potential for ready-to-eat meals. Despite its humble origins, breakfast in a can continues to be enjoyed today as a convenient and satisfying breakfast option for people on the go.
Chipped beef on toast, affectionately known as SOS, is a dish rooted in military history, featuring dried beef in a creamy sauce over toast. Simple and cost-effective, it became a staple in U.S. military mess halls for its quick assembly and satisfying nature. This dish's straightforward preparation, combining a roux-based sauce with rehydrated beef slices, made it a popular choice in civilian kitchens, especially among families with military backgrounds. Variations included substituting dried beef with ground beef or sausage, and biscuits instead of toast, catering to different tastes. The dish was valued for its hearty quality and versatility, fitting well into the culinary routines of many American households due to its ease of preparation and comforting nature.
Pancake on a stick, a fun and convenient breakfast treat, was first created in the early 21st century. This dish combines the classic flavors of pancakes and sausage into an easy-to-eat form, typically enjoyed as a quick breakfast or snack. The dish consists of a sausage link coated in pancake batter and then fried until golden. Pancake on a stick became popular when it was introduced as a convenient food option by companies like Jimmy Dean. Unusual variations, such as using different types of sausage or adding cheese, have added to the appeal of this dish. In 2017, pancake on a stick was featured on the menu of select fast food chains, further popularizing this innovative breakfast option. The dish has since become a favorite at state fairs and festivals across the United States. Something that went bar for bar with the French toast sticks were the Cinni Minis from Burger King, which were a delight you could not miss out on. Ever found yourself having a sudden sweet tooth or craving you cannot control for some cinnamon goodness? Cinni Minis were the cure for all your ailments, and they came cheaper than some ibuprofen or a Panadol. All the same, any headache you had after a bitter day would wash away with each delicious bite. Often, people would pair the French toast sticks with these too because they made such an elite dessert breakfast combo. Despite introducing it in the late 90s, its success was good enough for them to keep it in circulation until 2016, and the 2000s to 2010s were a volatile time for food in America. The market was constantly changing, and the Cinni Minis eventually lost their spark. Deviled eggs for breakfast is a surprising yet delightful dish that has roots in the early 20th century. It's a brunch favorite, featuring hard-boiled eggs filled with a creamy mixture of egg yolks, mayonnaise, mustard, and spices. Dijon or yellow mustard is typically used for a tangy kick, while toppings like paprika, chives, bacon bits, or caviar add variety. The dish is unique compared to other egg-based dishes because of its creamy and tangy filling, contrasting with the firm egg whites. Deviled eggs were originally known as stuffed eggs and appeared in American cookbooks as early as the 19th century, with variations featuring ingredients like vinegar, capers, and anchovies. Now, don't these working man's breakfasts just sound too good to not bring back? Comment below if you agree with me, and don't forget to like and subscribe.